Buenos días, bienvenidos, bienvenidas a este Side Event del SUM Bilbao de 2021. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Yo soy Luis Morales Carballo, responsable de proyectos públicos del Connectivity Hub. Me acompaña Sergio Díez, uno de los cofundadores y director del Connectivity Hub. Vamos a ser los conductores de esta sesión, que consistirá en dos paneles con grandes personas y organizaciones que nos acompañan hoy. Un primer panel de corporates y un segundo de startups. Durará media hora cada una, con idea de acabar a las 12:15, una media hora cada panel, ¿de acuerdo? Os dejo con Sergio, que va brevemente a introducir, muy brevemente, pasa la siguiente slide, por favor. Muy brevemente va a presentar el ecosistema de innovación que dinamizamos desde el Connectivity Hub y luego ya él se quedará con vosotros para conducir el primer panel, el de corporates.
Bueno, buenos días a todos y muchas gracias por compartir esta mañana. Ya sé que cuesta un poco a estas horas, sobre todo los que ya lleváis aquí un día más, ¿no? en Bilbao disfrutando de este Zoom, que la verdad que cada vez va cogiendo más fuerza. Simplemente para los que no nos conozcáis, comentaros un poco lo que hacemos, ¿no? lo que somos. Desde hace 6 años venimos trabajando en lo relativo a innovación en movilidad, desde una perspectiva pues, a lo mejor un poco diferente. Nuestro foco de innovación es todo el ecosistema de startups y luego cómo toda esa innovación que desarrollan las startups, pues de alguna forma podemos introducirla con diferentes proyectos, pues tanto en administraciones como en corporaciones y toda la parte de trabajo con inversión. Al final, cada vez vemos que los grandes ecosistemas de innovación pues, son las grandes palancas de cambio. Las nuevas movilidades tienen que ver mucho con los aspectos colaborativos. O sea, ya no podemos ir cada uno por nuestro lado, porque ahora realmente, si queremos ofrecer a las personas una alternativa de movilidad sostenible, pues al final es la colaboración del transporte público, de los diferentes servicios de movilidad y de todo tipo de empresas innovadoras que están poniendo pues, su grano de arena para dar un servicio pues, completo y una alternativa a los ciudadanos. Entonces, pues en ese sentido, simplemente por dar algunas cifras, lo que hemos venido haciendo estos últimos años, nos centramos principalmente en el sur de Europa, básicamente eso quiere decir 80% España, y luego pues, hacemos diferentes tipos de proyectos. Trabajamos dentro de Later Urban Mobility, que es un gran consorcio, ¿no? europeo de innovación, donde trabajamos en la parte de aceleración de startups y en la parte de proyectos de innovación. Con ciudades lanzamos el año pasado un proyecto que tiene que ver, nosotros llamamos manifiestos, que básicamente es cómo nos podemos poner de acuerdo en ver cuáles son las grandes palancas, ¿no? para acelerar las grandes soluciones que hay en las ciudades, pues como puede ser la movilidad multimodal, que es esa combinación, ¿no? del uso del coche, del transporte público, del mobility as service, o el last mile delivery, o cómo fomentar o acelerar la adopción de la movilidad eléctrica. Esas nos parecen, entre otras, pues las grandes palancas, y esos manifiestos representan, y lo hacemos con las ciudades y sus ecosistemas locales, pues representan cuáles son las claves y las soluciones donde hay que incidir para acelerar ese proceso, ¿no? En el día de hoy lo que queríamos era pues traer desde dos diferentes perspectivas, una que tiene que ver más con corporaciones y otra que tiene que ver más con startups, y viendo cómo cada uno, desde su perspectiva un poco más diferente, pues está evolucionando y está aportando soluciones en este sentido, ¿no? Entonces, hoy queríamos hablar de esas alternativas de movilidad que vamos a tener que desarrollar, vamos todos, me refiero, no solamente las ciudades que tendrán que facilitarlas, sino las diferentes empresas y operadores, para dar una alternativa real de movilidad sostenible en las ciudades. Va a haber dos paneles. Uno, este en concreto, que vamos a empezar ahora, con 4 corporaciones importantes y también diferentes, ¿no? Transporte colectivo, infraestructuras, fabricantes de coches, y luego otro más relativo a las startups. Así que, si os parece, empezamos por este y ya me siento. Quitar esto. Bueno, lo primero de todo, me gustaría presentaros, bueno, mejor dicho, que se presenten ellos. Tenemos 4 personas que son muy relevantes en el sector, de 4 empresas muy relevantes, como puede ser SEAT, como puede ser Mobilize de Renault, Alsa y Saba. Quería empezar bueno, dándoos la oportunidad, lo primero, que os presentéis cada uno, que digáis cuál es vuestro rol en vuestra organización, y sí que nos gustaría que nos contarais pues, 3 o 4 proyectos relevantes que tienen que ver precisamente con vuestra apuesta de nuevos modos de movilidad en las zonas de bajas emisiones. Si quieres, empezamos por ti, Álvaro.
Bueno, buenos días a todos. Primero, agradecer a la organización, que creo que ha hecho un eventazo, y a Connected Mobility Hub por invitarnos a contaros hoy un poco qué hacemos en ALSA, ¿no? Mi nombre es Álvaro Andrade, yo lidero la innovación en ALSA. ¿Qué hacemos en innovación en ALSA? Básicamente trabajamos en 4 verticales. Un vertical de Venture Capital, invertimos en startups del sector de la movilidad. Otro vertical que es el Venture Building.
The vertical one, which is venture building. We create new companies generating new mobility solutions and lab events. So we cooperate with startups and other technologies that will help us develop new mobility solutions with the same goal. What's our value proposal? Well, we want to offer a sustainable, multimodal and connected mobility. And in the last years, we've been transforming our business model, offering new solutions. Many of you will know our autonomous bus project, which is practically the first one in the world of its kind. And we do have autonomous buses regulating travelers' lines. There are 2 or 3 in the world, so we are actually pioneers, like I say. And we are also launching our mobility service app. It's called ALSA Mobile for You, with the aim of integrating all the new solutions so that they are all intertwined in one single app. And that makes the user experience better. In the last years, we've also launched our ride-sharing system. It's called Checkup. Through VTC services, we can offer a last-mile approach for our buses to go to the station and so on. And focusing on low emissions, we bet a lot on scooters and bikes. As you know, before the COVID pandemic, it was already an interesting market in Spain. Over 72% of households have a bike, and many of them do have a scooter as well. And the pandemic has even increased that. And post-pandemic, sales of bikes increased 300%. So now if you want to buy a bike, you'll get a car earlier than a bike from the manufacturers. So now we are working on a safe parking for bikes and scooters, which will solve one of the issues of the bikers who don't know how to safely park them. So all kind of solutions that will facilitate this sustainable private mobility. Rosa, could you introduce yourself? Good morning. I also wanted to thank the organizers of the event and Sergio for inviting me. I work for Mobilize, the new brand of the Renault Group, focused on helping in this paradigm change, this concept of owning a car towards now using common cars in low emissions area. Our project started in 2017 with shared cars in Madrid and Paris for now. And we also have other services. We mainly focus in France, but our aim is to expand the shared car services with different stations, from very small towns to bigger cities, so that we give an option to the citizens who don't own a car, so that they can travel as they prefer. And we also work a lot with subscriptions. being able to change your car whenever you want without being bound to one single vehicle that you own, so that clients can choose from all our offer. I work on the implementation of these projects with the different companies of Renault in different countries, and we also are developing new business models. Yesterday, we talked a lot about last mile deliveries and what kind of vehicles Renault has to build as OEM in order to offer the final product that cities or companies need. John, please let us know. Yes, of course, I also want to thank the organizers and Connected for having me here. I'm Joan Villapalana. I worked in SAB. I would have said that I'm a parking operator, that it's a parking operator, but now I would say that it's a company in the mobility sector. My role is basically to manage all the portfolio of projects of the company, specifically the mobility ones. And I would say that parking lots at the eye of the storm. We are infrastructures in a city and very much impacted by the sustainable mobility plans, the low emission zones, etc. What's our approach? Well, rather than talking about 2 or 3 projects, I would say that it is the transformation of the company itself. We are working on that. And when we talk about low emission zones, we're not just talking about cameras reading plates, car plates. It's much more than that. It's intermodality, parking lots, our intermodality centers, and we are integrating them with the different sharing operators, especially in a free-floating but station-based project, not so much the free-floating at the streets, because we do believe in removing vehicles from the streets and giving the space back to the citizens. So we think that these intermodal points must be there, electric recharge grid as well. In Barcelona, 60% of households don't have a parking lot where they can recharge their vehicles. We are the biggest charging grid in Spain. We have many charging points, and we are increasing. And cities are not just about people, but also about freight. We were told yesterday that in Madrid, 40% of the vehicles work in a last mile model, and it will increase in the coming years up to 50%. And we are transforming parking lots in last mile distribution hubs, a sustainable distribution with active means, entering cities at night with electric vehicles. And we've been working for 3 years with a last mile distributor. So all the transformation is oriented to that. So we are seeing that these companies that didn't work so actively in people mobility in the past are entering other fields such as logistics, working a lot on innovation with startups. Thank you, John. And maybe Nuria now. We would also like to know about your perspective. And you can also let us know about how proprietary cars are part of this modality as well. Yes, I am delighted to be here. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Till 2015 or 16, we worked mainly on automotion, and now we are a mobility company. We used to be the center of the value chain in a vertical, upstream and downstream. We had distribution tiers, raw materials, and down would be the distribution, etc. This has completely changed. Now we don't talk about the value chain, but multiple value chains that are intertwined. We talk about services, parks, batteries, everything. And within the company, I'm in charge of creating alliances in order to generate this ecosystem for the company. And that's why I know you all. We have a shared vision with Mobilize because the seed is common for both of us. But something Joanne says struck my attention when we talk about low emissions. Before explaining what we see, I would like to focus on why are there low emission zones? What are we establishing these zones for and how we do it? Why is clear. There's a climate change. We have pollution, the emissions, the air quality. So why is clear. What for? In order to have a healthy mobility, to improve our quality of life. And the how is more complicated because at present we don't know yet how to do it. There are two big cities in Spain who have started doing it, Madrid and Barcelona, but we don't know yet how effective they've been. With the Spain Chamber, we've been working on the Mobility Commission, chaired by SEAT, and we've been working in different fields, such as connected mobility, or the transition to electric and safer vehicles, and the impact of the pedestrian planning in the cities. But the thing is, we don't have enough data to know how effective these measures have been. So I think that when we have to implement the low emission zones, we first need to establish common standards for all cities so that we can measure and know which measures are more efficient and replicate those. When we talk about how to do it, it is important to keep thinking of the what for. There are many ways of doing it, but they don't all have the same consequences. It's not the same thing to punish than to foster something. There are different ways of doing things, and you must be aware of the needs of people. So when you forbid something, you must be sure that the person you're forbidding something to has alternative measures. And instead, we are 100% sure that the big person's mobility is done through the mass public transport. But you need to cover the rest of the needs. If they are not covered, you cannot ban. And today, there are many things at the hotspot of mobility. Joanne said, mentioned, for example, the space. And so one thing is the public space management, and another thing is the low emission zones, because the why and the what for is different. One of them is to reduce the congestion, which is urban, and the other one is the improvement of the air quality. So when we talk about low emission zones, let's not mix everything together. So the goal is to have a healthy mobility. And we can find solutions for traffic jams. Private cars are not bad as long as they are occupied. Maybe choosing whether they're private, public is something we need to look more into, because maybe a car can be used by several people, so that will be more efficient than having just one driver. In SEAT, from your side, how are you working on the solutions in these low emission zones, claiming for new vehicles, new ways of moving that are maybe combined?
Actually, we have enlarged our portfolio. We have the old vehicles that we used to have with different sizes, etc. But we're now working in micromobility, and we understand micromobility, thinking about the new means of transportation, such as electric bikes, electric scooters, smaller vehicles, So it's basically micromobility, which is usually urban, and it could be interurban between smaller towns which have no services. And we are working with SE2. We're going to have a round table. You're all invited to that. That's going to happen soon. And we're actually focusing greatly on software in order to offer new services. We have SE2. They actually create code in order to offer this type of services. We have a new platform which we created about a year ago. It's called Volta. And thereby we have a multi-brand platform because municipalities, have their own things where they might offer something through Reno, for example, and Reno could actually join our platform. It's multi-brand, multi-service, and multimodal, basically. Thank you very much. Actually, let's do this a little bit more dynamic. Let's open up some new themes. Please give us your opinions freely, and therefore we can actually interact better with each other. Last year we were speaking about those key points. We need to foster the old, the transition from the old system into the new one. There is a variety of new options now. So from the perspective that we want the citizens to have at hand whatever is more useful to them at that particular time. Well, thinking about that, let's introduce some new themes that are important. New management of spaces, intermodality. You were actually speaking about that, how we incentivize people to do certain things regarding municipalities, regarding towns and their regulations. How do you think that municipalities and administrations in general should favor these new ways of mobility, these new shapes of mobility, which are complementary, as some people were saying here, to public transport? What should their position be like? From my perspective, actually, we always work within the ecosystem. We work with public administrations, with the startup and the corporate dimensions. And we're always focusing on the users, so that's non-negotiable. But if you ask me, I think they have to be more flexible. We should not mistake the terms, right? If I say be more flexible, I don't mean to have 3,000 solutions and to have chaos, right? They should be more flexible, but within some kind of an order, right? So we want a low emission area. That's good. But there are many concepts that we should introduce in that area. In order to get there, you need to have some long-distance transportation, metropolitan transportation, and then you have to work with the parking lots, parking areas, etc. So they need to be a little bit more flexible when introducing pilot areas. And there should be some order and some clear strategy. Without a clear strategy, we're going to have some sort of salad, some sort of chaos in those low emission areas. Do you think that administration, says the other speaker, says the moderator actually, do you think that administration is open to doing all of that? Maybe some people will be more open than others. I think, says the other speaker, that you can actually find anything depending on the town and their experience. I totally agree that we need some clear structure, some clear strategy, and you need to actually bear in mind where the different players are in this new mobility. It has to be user and citizen centered or focused. We want citizens to have the best quality of life, to have the means to be able to move within those low emission areas, but they need to have options. They should not feel that they've been banned from doing anything. So, your private car, if it's just for you and it's parked in the street is for everybody, so you got to liberate that parking space, right? But you need to take into account what the new mobility operators are going to be. Those who are going to create that more convivial space, that a better well-being space for the citizens, right? And they need to have a business case. If not, they're going to stay for a few years and then they're going to leave. We've seen that in very many cities. In Lisbon, for example, they launch very many new mobility services, but it's not profitable. So most of them left. We see the same case in Vienna. The town wants to launch new services, but if the charging infrastructure, for example, which is very necessary, is not there, well, you're not going to be able to have electric cars within. We need the charging stations not just in private areas, but also in public areas. So we need to bear into account that there are very many operators that are going to give some kind of service. So the town, the municipality must be must be listening to those people so that the operators have an easy way to offer their services. Yes, Joan or Nuria, please. Yes, says Joan. I think that it's quite evident that municipalities want to do things and they want to improve the city environment for the citizens. Nuria was saying that there are many things to do, and I totally agree with that. I think that big municipalities, but also smaller towns, smaller municipalities, need to have a clearer picture of what or clearer mind about what the real picture is. Why should they liberate space in the street? Well, most of the pollution in cities comes from the traffic congestion, actually. If I'm actually driving through the city center of a huge city in Spain, average speed is less than 20 kilometers an hour. It's clear that I'm polluting a lot more because I'm trapped. So urban planning is totally necessary here. So that's the second point that we're actually lacking, I believe. We need some further collaboration that goes beyond the town council, the town government itself. Let's take the example of Barcelona. There are between 800,000 and 1 million people entering Barcelona every day. Let's take the average. Let's take 900,000, okay? So those people do not live in Barcelona and they enter the city every day. More than half of them do it using private transportation. So let's be careful. Mass transportation in Barcelona is not public transportation. And that's the public transportation actually reaches its limit at peak hours. So the Arkham Right are solutions which are good for a particular town, but they must be implemented correctly in different towns. Even though I'm for those park and ride solutions, right? But be careful, because finding park and rides for 900,000 people in a city is quite difficult, and it requires the collaboration of very many entities, very many different bodies simultaneously. So let us be clear about some of those elements. Sometimes the solution is not just a solution belonging to the town, even though they might really struggle for it and fight for it, right? I'm really worried about those 800,000 or 900,000 people entering a city. We speak in Barcelona, we speak for many other cities. Are those citizens as well? I think they are. I'm very worried about that because I'm one of them, right? So we got to guarantee an access to their jobs, to having fun, to anything that they need to do in town. So we need to go a little bit further above and be able to have a wider picture. We should not focus too much around a particular solution at a given time, right? And then, there are people who are driving around in order to find a parking lot. That's 30% of the traffic. Last mile traffic, that's 40%. 40% of the kilometer vehicles, right? If we reduce those to half, we've reduced 35% of traffic within a city. And we have not banned anything yet. Do you realize that? Actually, you're right. If you actually read the data, that you realize that you don't have to go against the vehicles. You have to change habits, right? So if you want to lose weight, you have several options, right? You can practice sports or you can stop eating. What's better? Well, it's actually if you start doing sport or if you eat healthier, right? Instead of, stopping eating altogether. So why should we stop vehicles? We love multimodality. Why do we love that? Because multimodality is about the whole life cycle of anybody, of any citizen. As we grow older, we have different needs. When we're young, we can just not afford our own vehicle. We're not old enough to actually get a license, right? So everything which is micromobility helps you in that way. But then you grow older and you can actually afford a car. But maybe you say, actually, that's not profitable for me, so I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to share it, right? But then you get a family and you need to manage things. So you may be thinking of, yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Every age has its own needs, and private cars are needed, and they can be used in an efficient way. Yes, that's right, says Nuria. Well, going back to the towns, how they are perceiving this, how they want to facilitate all of this transition, and all the money coming from Europe, those new plans coming from Europe. We were speaking about that yesterday with Joan. What are we going to see from all of that money? Actually, towns are launching public procurement offers, and how do you think that that's going to be able to foster this kind of multimodal new mobility in cities, in town and cities? Because you're a part of projects in cities. Let's be very brief, please, because we have two other points later on. I think that any type of push will help. I think it's just come too fast. I think that the public administrations, are overwhelmed, and they're actually asking for a lot of funding without having a clear strategy. So I'm gonna actually speak for the public administration, right? There are many people there who are actually willing to do things, but the how is kind of tricky, so they don't know how to do it. With the Bilbao municipality, Madrid municipality, Barcelona municipality, they've all been facilitating to us. They have a goodwill, and there's going to be a push, but there's going to be there are going to be very few places where there's going to be a clear strategy. The town of Bilbao is quite clear about that. They are very clear about what they want to do. They want to foster pedestrian mobility and biking mobility, and they're going to do that. But many other places, they don't know what they want to do, so they want a little bit of everything, and that's not. Yes. Well, how could you help in that? Precisely. You could say, well, there's this city, it moves in this way, they have this low emission area, or, they're going to have these needs. So we think, from our experience and expertise, using data analysis, we think that the optimum services for mobility would be these or these or these. Yes, that's right. It depends on the city. In Bilbao, we're speaking about pedestrian and bike mobility. We speak about a relatively small town, from San Mamés to Abando. It's like 15, 20, 25 minutes max. If you speak about a larger city such as Madrid or Paris, you're going to have more multimodal elements, maybe scooters, bikes, motorbikes, etc. So towns are bound to offer those mobility services, and they're going to be bound to eliminate cars, private cars in low emission areas. Function of the age. As Nuria was saying, you might need a privately owned car. But in city centers, in old city centers, there is a larger population density, and, cars being parked 90% of the time. you know, they don't belong there. I think the tendency is going to eliminate that option, and tendency is going to be to have more space for citizens who actually live there and for people who go there. So I think that those are the new strategies. There are going to be new mobility services for people to be able to access those areas and leave those areas easily and freely. A couple of things very briefly, if you will. We're speaking about very ideal things, but we see that in practice that's very difficult to implement, right? We're trying to develop those in cities, to implement those in cities, so that they won't go back on anything. But I like to understand, and I'd like the public administrations to understand what the key points are for profitability. What are the parameters that you use or that you need from the public administrations in order for your businesses to be sustainable and profitable, because they also be to be economically sustainable, right? Joan or Nuria? We need some mass, we need some volume for it to be profitable. But that's not the only case, because otherwise we could only offer those type of services in huge cities. I think that we need more efficiency, especially for smaller towns or rural areas. That funding would also depend on mass. There are going to be towns which have interactive mobility amongst them, and they're going to be offer new services, and they're going to be be able to benefit from them. But do you think, sorry to interrupt you, do you think that those multimodality services should be part of the public transportation? Yes, that's right. We believe that. And the bus on demand is actually a lot more efficient for peak hours than putting the double line. And we're actually working on that. The platform we're working with now includes that. Yes, including, the city of Nice, for example. When they have lower public service, they have a station-based electric public sharing car service, so that people could actually come back home in a safer way, and that's included within the public transportation schedule that they have, the monthly schedule, right? Well, last comment. Joan, please, you haven't spoken, so go ahead. Yes, actually, let's go back to supra-municipal collaboration. We were speaking about 1 billion there, 1.4 billion there from the MOVES. So for municipalities which are over 150,000 people, it's going to be 5 billion totaling. But if we need to create some new infrastructure, we're not going to have enough money for all of that. So we have to have that vision beyond municipalities, right? Thank you for your comments. We're going to give the floor now to Luis, who's going to introduce the next panel for startups. Thank you very much for your presence here.
Venga, vamos.
Me he quedado con ganas de preguntas, pero ya luego...
¿Se me oye? Sí. Gracias, Sergio. Gracias.
Thank you, Sergio, and corporate roundtable panelists. We're now opening up the next panel, the startup panel. These are very innovative startups with worldwide services, with an international hub, with 140 members, and we have 5 representatives. Paloma Martin, founder and CMO of Hub Carpool, Antonio Robert, co-founder and CEO of Alma Mobility, Alberto de la Llave, Business Development Manager from Mimoto Parking, Noemi Moya, Head of Government Affairs and Public Policy for Spain and France from VOI, and Antonio Dominguez, Founder and CEO of Cargo Busy. Maybe we'll start in the same order that we have on the screen. So you have the floor, Paloma. Please let us know very briefly. We have less than half an hour. We should finish at past, so we'll have a 3-4 minute maximum for you to present your startup, the mobility services you offer, and then we can have a chat together, like in the previous roundtable. Thank you, Luis. Thanks to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with Movilidad Conectada, Connected Mobility. I am Paloma Martin, co-founder and CMO of Hoop Carpool. It's a mobile app that connects people who work or study in the same city so that they can share a car. We are some sort of blah car, but oriented to go to work or to the university. So I think this is a good point of connection with the previous table because there are many common points with Joan and Nuria. We want to be leaders in this transition from the individual use of private cars to a shared electric and autonomous car service. So maybe what we now do in an app is something that the cars will tell you. You are here and you can pick up someone in 200 meters with the goal to occupy completely the vehicles so that we have less cars and less pollutions. I would really love to talk to John because one of the pain points is the parking lot or parking slot. Sometimes people need to be looking for a slot for 10 or 15 minutes when they go to work. So at a corporate level, we are trying to optimize parking lots. And the same way we do with the occupation of cars that we drive, we could do the same thing in the parking lots. So I've changed my habits. I've picked up a couple of people on my way to work, to share expenses and to pollute less. Well, since we are changing our mindset, why not have more privileged access to the parkings compared to the ones that are single drivers of their cars? We channel the services through companies and universities. We are a B2B2C. We have agreements with over 50 companies and universities and now city halls. I would love for the carpooling to be considered one day a public service. And at Las Rozas, we've more or less done it because Las Rozas is paying for the price of the trajects of the passengers. If you live at Las Rozas, you can use Hoop Carpool, share a car, make reservations, and for now, at present, the town hall pays for it. So we are really proud that there are cities doing this here. We only knew this for Paris, for the city of Paris. The city hall there is also financing the carpooling companies in the city. And now we see that Spain is getting there. We are seeing a change in the mindset of companies, universities, people, and town halls. There's still a long path to walk, but with events like this one and startups like these ones, I'm sure we will go towards better mobility. Certainly, Paloma, thank you. And this example is fantastic because it's very much linked to what they said at the previous table about banning or incentives and so on. Yes, it's not about banning, but about creating levers for and making things easier for those who make this choice. That's it. Many of the vehicles that we use every day is to go to work, to university, etc. And it's very important to have this mindset change. Yes, and if we could ask people what superpower they would like to have, many would say to teletransport myself. That's the importance of mobility must be fast and efficient. Great. And also related to car pooling, we have Antonio Robert from Alma Mobility. And that case is very interesting. You do some sort of carpooling, but also car sharing. It's a hybrid between carpooling and car sharing, trying to facilitate this demand of sharing a car when people go to work. But there's also a fleet floating model so that you can maybe use a car during the weekend or something like that. So let us know about you. Yes, thank you very much for inviting us. Thanks to the SUM and to you for inviting Alma here. Like you said, Alma combines two business models that already existed in quite an innovative way. We work at Zaragoza and we offer a floating car sharing service so that you can pick up a car wherever you want in the city and then leave it wherever you want and pay per use. And we've shared it with a growing need that we have seen. The main reason why people use private car every day, which is to go to work. People have a car because the public transportation or the mobility companies don't solve the problem when they have to go to work to the same place every day. And after the pandemic, after the lockdown, we saw what happened at the technological poles. These are areas, technology parks where the public transportation is very inefficient for workers. And we suggested a subscription model so that workers group in our cars and go to work together. These are electric cars, so it's very sustainable, and the model is very efficient, mainly for companies that work with shifts, because then you can have a car come and go 6 times a day. This is working very well in Zaragoza, and we are now testing it in other Spanish cities. That's fantastic. So you're moving now to other cities, I understand. Yes, the idea is to expand to medium-sized company, industrial ones. Bilbao is a city we would really love to work in. Pamplona, Seville, Valencia, etc. Well, we can help you. We are in contact with these city halls, so we can help you with that. So medium-sized companies, I understand, with good public transportation so that there is enough mass of people who don't need to own a car. So these cities must have a good public transportation service, because that wouldn't work in cities like the ones we see in the United States, where households are very much apart, maybe. But for these kind of cities, it would work very well because people don't feel that they need to have a car for everything. They do. Fantastic. And now we shift to Alberto de la Llave from Mimoto Parking, a very interesting startup. And it's related to micro-mobility. So you're trying to make motorbike parking easier, but not only for motorbikes, right? Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm going to read because due to the COVID, I have trouble sometimes remembering things, and I don't want. So we are working on new sustainable mobility for the two-wheel vehicles to ensure safe parking in the centers of cities. Must be one of the main reasons why big sector corporations did that, and also public administrations, in order to foster and integrate the use of sustainable vehicles. Mimoto Parking is committed to the environment, and mobility is a key sector to transform cities and improve the way of life. A startup that was born in 2018 and that overcame the pandemic, shifting to the hub, multi-service hubs, with integrating capacity in the sustainable mobility sector. In this line, the last mile companies finding it that our service, perfect parking, improving their daily operation and saving money. Mimoto parkings are designed to cover different verticals. In the first place, they saw problems at the street for bikes and scooters parking. We open 24 hours a day, and we have a place where you can leave your everything in a box office, and we develop low visual impact spaces which are modular and dismantleable for micromobility vehicle parking and also for the last mile. Now we are in a national expansion moment, and we have a robust, solid mobile quality service, very positively valued by the users. And we want multi-mobility to use our services, because wherever we are, we will be very useful. Okay, and let us know a little bit. The parking lots that you create are where they're at the street, under malls, covered, open, public space, private space. Well, we have both. We are focusing more on streets and easy parking, very simple, with artificial intelligence. You have a code, you enter, you park. That's very easy. And in public spaces, we have created a business model with modules that can become bigger or smaller, 100% sustainable, where bikes and scooters can be safely parked with 24-hour day surveillance, with box offices, with a little box where you can keep your things. And now, thank you very much. Now we shift to Noemi Moya from VOI. You're deploying your electric scooters in Sevilla and Malaga, but you're already in over 70 cities in Europe from different countries. Let us know a little bit about your company and what you're doing around Europe. Yes, thank you, Luis, and thanks for having us here. VOI is a Swedish company. We are based in Stockholm. We offer scooters and electric scooters and bike sharing services. We are present in 80 cities, and right now we operate in over 11 countries in Europe. And since January, we started working in Spain. We already tried a few years ago, but the regulation were not ready, the cities were not ready. There was a micromobility boom, but it was not really arranged yet. So we decided to wait for the right time. And it seems we're getting there. Not quite yet, but we are moving in that direction. Cities and the country are starting to understand this model. And in January, we started the pilot project in Seville. It's a city with a very similar model to the one we work with. We work with cities that are regulated, where operators respect some rules. And in Malaga, too, we started offering electric scooters as well as in Sevilla. We did it in July. And we're really looking forward to expanding to new Spanish cities. Thank you, Noemi. And your service contributes to the habitability of cities. They are electric, so no gas emissions. Destination, maybe at the origin point, yes, but now in Spain, about 80% have a traceable origin and the rest doesn't. But we think that when the vehicles are electric, they are sustainable, it's not very accurate. We are at 40% of the energetic mix is like that, but it does help to consumption. So you improve the habitability, the quality of the air. And there's also this intermodality with public services, because you can combine them. You can use a bus and then a scooter, and it's absolutely relevant. Can you say something about that? But you explained it so well. Okay, so now we hand the floor to our last panelist, and then we can have a chat. We have with us Antonio Dominguez for Cargo Bici, a company working on last mile distribution with electric bikes. Thank you for the invitation. We are a technological company. We bet on digitalization of all processes. We have two main pillars. One of them are the micro hubs all over the city, and the other one are the chargeable bikes that can transport up to 300 kilos. That allows us to offer solutions for the administrations and for the corporations to decarbonize all the last mile operations, mainly the one of low drop size. And since 6 months ago, and this is news because not everyone knows it, we are now working with a big corporation, the Bilbao group, to carry out the low drop size last mile operations to bar, restaurant, and small supermarkets. And this means that we not only work with sustainability, which is key for us, besides the carbon print, but we also bend on cost efficiency. We are working with cold chains, and our deliveries are in 4 hours, and our routes are maximum 1 hour and a half. So it's very cost effective. We always have our charged bikes at the micro hub, and we are having Bimbo vans to do 50 or 60 weekly kilometers inside the city. So this is positive for the CO2 the carbon print, but also for the levels of nitrogen, the PMs, which are the cancerogen particles related to the mass and volume of vehicle. We also have an impact on sound. We have discovered silence thanks to the pandemic, and we've lost it again. And thanks to the technological base we have, we can measure our impact very well. We've managed to measure the real impact of the transformation of these vans into a load bike in front of schools where children come out. So it's mostly about efficiency and also cost efficiency. And we are now trying to scale it mainly in Barcelona, and our client asked us to go to Madrid as soon as possible. So you're working exactly? We are working in the San Martin neighborhood, and we will open in Sands. So we will cover the north and the south of the city. But the mid-year would like to open up the center of Barcelona, and at the end of the year we would like to try out the center of Madrid. Oh, that's great. And you have this software, this technology, it's a marketplace. Yes, we do all of that. We have developed a web app so that pre-sales orders can be sent to us. We also have a business intelligence database that allows us to analyze all the impacts and the productivity. And then we have the industrial side, which is the manufacturing of these electric bikes. And we are working with local producers to manufacture them in Spain because it's expensive. In Germany, last year, well, in 2019, 40,000 electric cargo bikes were sold, and they sold less electric vans. So in Germany, they already made that step, but we still have a lot to do here in Spain to have the permit to manufacture these modular high-capacity vehicles. Yeah, so low emission zone, transformation of mobility in the cities. You're opening up a new path. When cities will define their low emission zones, they will change the landscape, I think, and this will open up the path for you. Well, we know that from the side of the administration, it's a bit complicated because when you are regulating mobility, it's very easy to have a public opinion against you. And we've seen that in Barcelona, they are really pioneers with their regulations, but they don't really apply it. And that leads to a certain uncertainty, which is not good. At the end of the day, we want to offer a solution for all the corporations that, whether they have to or not, they want to take a step, to take this leap towards decarbonization. And what do you ask from the administration? Maybe certainty, stability, and now with the low emission zones, maybe more. Is there something you'd like to point out here, this forum that you are coming out in streaming and many city halls are listening? What would you like to ask from the public administrations so that you can deploy these more sustainable mobility services at the cities? Any of you can answer. Well, I think we probably all agree that it should be easier to have this public and private cooperation. If that works in a smoother way, we would be able to standardize some collaboration processes where communication to the final user is facilitated, because we face administrations with which it's very easy to work, some with which it's very difficult, and with some of them it's almost impossible. So we need to regulate and normalize all this. The fact that the public and private sectors must work hand in hand, not just for mobility, for anything, but even more in mobility. If we really want to become part of the public sector one day, we need to go through this cooperation first. And Nomi, would you add something concerning administrations? Well, maybe understanding that we must reach a real private-public cooperation so that they consider us partners because of the experience we've already had in other countries, in other cities, and that we can contribute with the point of view of the private companies. And then having standardized criteria, clear regulations that are not different from one city to the next, because these services are very novel and users don't really understand how they work. We need to help them. If we make it difficult for them, it will be even more complicated. So clear criteria, coordination between them and with the private sector as well. Yes, in this sense, in Spain, we had a call for offers at the end of August. It's finished in September. And when the guidelines had not been published yet for the low emission zone. So we first need a framework for regulation so that we can work together, the private and the public sector. Yes, we have a very good relationship with public administration. They usually like our service very much, but maybe I would like to have a TVA that's the same, the taxes, to have the same taxes as in the public sector, because we don't. And it doesn't make things easy. And especially when employees are paying for this kind of transport. So VAT. And they're calling me because I need to moderate another session, but well, I will be late. So how are you managing this integration, the data management with other similar startups? Well, at Hoop, the integration in the multimodal transport platforms is the future. In order to do that, we must prepare companies very well from a technological point of view. And we all know that technological profiles, I mean, they're not difficult to find, but you need to invest many resources from the company in that. And also searching for other variables, such as helping each other. We are now talking to a real estate that's already working with a multimodal transport platform, and they are very much interested in integrating Hoop in their platform. We're trying to see how the multimodal transport company and the real estate and us, we can make an effort and integrate, because sometimes a startup cannot afford such an integration in the short term. So the integration must come from the startup, but also cooperating with the other organizations in order to make people's lives easier so that they can have all the alternatives in one single place, especially when a platform wants to launch all the possibilities. And this is what we are working on. Well, it's 10:15. We should finish already. So if you want, maybe you give me just one title, 30 seconds each. This is going to be recorded, and so please, this will probably be on the press afterwards. So maybe 30 seconds, 1 minute each, and we close. Well, sustainability must be measured, not just the carbon print, but also environmental parameters such as hydrogens and PM, but also social aspects. Working conditions are important, direct impact on people is important. And when we link sustainability to the carbon print, it's a mistake, because we are actually fostering the problem. Very quickly, something we tend to say is that whenever it's possible and convenient, let's use public transportation for a short distance. Let's use micromobility. And if you need to use a private vehicle, at least let's share it. We want to be part of sustainable mobility, and we create spaces to make more sustainable cities and to make things easier for the users. Well, I would say mobility is changing. The way we move is changing, and cities must adapt. Low emission zones are very well, but only if they are accompanied by some criteria, impact analysis, and complementary actions, such as the ones present at this table can offer. And Antonio, well, I would say that in order to make sustainable mobility cost efficient, there must be a cooperation between public organizations, big corporations, and startups, which are innovating and launching new ideas according to the needs in the market. Thank you. So with these titles, we close this session. We are over the time, and I need to run to the next session. Thank you very much. Please, a big round of applause.
Esperamos que os haya sido de interés, de provecho.
We hope this side event was interesting for you. Thank you very much.